Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're cutting straight through all that confusing online noise to look at the real value, the actual pricing, and the sheer engineering behind copper gutters, especially if you're living in a harsh coastal climate like we have here in New Hampshire. If you've ever been totally lost in a sea of conflicting contractor advice, or seen those impossibly cheap internet quotes, or maybe you're just staring up at yet another leaking seam after a long winter, well, you're in the exact right place. Let's get into it. Here's our roadmap. We're going to cover the Coastal Climate Challenge, copper's coastal advantage, the reality of pricing and tariffs, the 60-year math, the soldering secret, and finally, New England gutter systems. Okay, Section 1, the Coastal Climate Challenge and surviving the elements. Look, a New Hampshire home takes an absolute beating. Standard gutters are getting relentlessly hammered by about 45 inches of rain every single year. But you know the real killer? It's those 30 to 50 freeze-thaw cycles we get every winter. Water sneaks in, it freezes, it expands, thaws out, and does it all over again. That cycle literally rips standard aluminum sealant joints apart. And when you add in that highly corrosive, sulfur-heavy, salty air near places like Portsmouth and Hampton, I mean, you've got a perfect storm for metal failure. So seeing all that brutal weather, it really begs the question, can any exterior material genuinely withstand decades of this kind of punishment without completely rusting out, failing, or just flat out falling off your fascia boards? Which brings us to Section 2, copper's coastal advantage and its built-in armor. The answer to surviving the coast is all in the chemistry of copper. It is a totally different beast. See, unlike other metals that just degrade and rust away out in the elements, copper actually gets stronger over time. It develops this natural patina, that really beautiful soft blue-green finish. But hey, it is not just for looks. That patina actually acts as an impenetrable self-healing shield against all that coastal moisture and salt air. It's literally built-in armor. Let's put them side by side. Standard aluminum, it quickly gives up the ghost against salt's air. You're constantly repainting it, maintaining it, and eventually you're replacing the whole thing. Natural copper, though, is naturally biostatic, meaning it effortlessly resists mold, algae, corrosion, the works. You are simply not going to find moss growing on a copper gutter. It's incredibly low upkeep compared to basically everything else out there. All right, Section 3, copper pricing and tariffs. Time for a market reality check. Let's talk money, because there is massive confusion online about this. You might see a number like $5.89 floating around, but listen, that just represents a recent spot price per pound of raw copper. Copper is a globally traded commodity, right? It's not a fixed-price building material like a standard 2x4 at the hardware store. So when someone online claims you can get copper gutters for $8 a foot, they're either pricing out raw coil stock, which is like pricing a new house by the cost of uncut timber, or worse, they're trying to sell you fake copper-painted aluminum. The truth is, the copper market is incredibly unstable right now. Why? Well, it's a mix of global supply constraints, plus this massive demand from the electrification sector. Electric vehicles, upgrading power grids, all that stuff. Then you've got regional price variances and constantly shifting tariffs impacting imported materials. Basically, if you saw a lowball quote 6 months ago, you can almost guarantee it's entirely outdated today. The price literally changes daily. So what's the actual truth for a homeowner? Those impossibly cheap internet numbers are just a myth. Realistically, for a professionally installed, custom-fabricated, fully soldered case-style copper system here in New Hampshire, you are looking at a range of $55 to $85 per linear foot. And keep in mind that price includes the proper copper strap hangers and stainless steel screws. No cheap galvanized hardware that's going to rust out and ruin your brand new investment. Moving on to Section 4, the 60-year math. Let's weigh that initial cost against the lifetime return on investment. Yes, the upfront price of copper is absolutely higher. But if you zoom out and look at a 60-year timeline, the financial reality totally flips. You are fundamentally choosing between replacing a cheap system multiple times because it's going to fail, or just paying once for a system that will easily outlive you. Aluminum gutters, they're usually totally shot in 20 to 30 years. Copper, if installed right, is literally a one-and-done scenario for your lifetime. Just look at the hard math here. For an average home, tearing down and replacing aluminum 2 to 3 times over 60 years, that's going to run you anywhere from $9,800 to almost $18,000. Why so high? Because of labor inflation. Think about what it's going to cost to hire a crew 30 years from now. It'll be astronomical. Copper, on the other hand, installed exactly once today, sits between $9,500 and $14,250. When you actually factor in inevitable labor inflation and the endless maintenance of aluminum, a one-time copper install provides a huge long-term cost benefit. It's often actually cheaper over a lifetime, and it genuinely bumps up your property value.
Section 5, the soldering secret and the physics of gutter joints.
Now, that amazing 60-year lifespan, it entirely depends on one critical engineering secret that standard installers just won't tell you about. It comes down to mechanical fusion. A 40-foot run of copper gutter can expand and contract by over half an inch as the temperature swings. Because of that, you absolutely cannot use silicone caulk on copper. That expansion will rip the caulk to shreds in maybe 3 to 7 years, guaranteed. The joints must be mechanically fused with solder. Solder isn't just a glue, it actually bonds the copper at a molecular level. It turns the entire system into one solid piece that can safely absorb all that thermal expansion.
There is a great saying in the industry: solder doesn't care about freeze-thaw cycles. While typical caulked seams are just being relentlessly ripped apart by New Hampshire's ice and winter storms, a properly soldered copper joint just moves flawlessly right along with the metal. It stays permanently leak-free. Seriously, if a contractor ever tells you they plan to seal your copper gutters with caulk, that is your cue to say thanks, turn around, and politely walk away.
Finally, Section 6, New England Gutter Systems, the Regional Authority. Because properly soldering copper is such a highly specialized skill, honestly, it's practically a lost art. Picking the right contractor is the single most important decision you're going to make. The copper itself will last, but the installation is everything. Which brings us to the number 30. That's how many years Dan Foote, the driving force behind New England Gutter Systems, has spent mastering the gutter industry. You really do not want someone practicing their soldering skills for the very first time on your premium copper investment, right? You want decades of specialized hands-on experience. And maybe even more importantly, 20. Out of those 30 years, Dan has spent 2 full decades specifically serving New Hampshire, and that is huge. He intimately understands the exact demands of our local, coastal, and winter climates. He knows when you need a heavier gauge copper or tighter hanger spacing to handle those heavy snow loads up in the lakes region. And he knows exactly how the salty air down in Portsmouth is going to affect Pat Nation. That deep dedication to the craft is exactly why New England Gutter Systems stands out. They don't just promise you good work, they actually guarantee it. They do custom on-site seamless fabrication, which means fewer seams to begin with. They provide expert structural soldering, and they back all that unparalleled craftsmanship with solid manufacturer material warranties, plus an absolute lifetime warranty on their labor. Your investment is completely protected by folks who genuinely understand the material. So let's wrap this explainer up. When you add it all together, the undeniable coastal advantages, the simple math of a 60-year return on investment, and the absolute necessity of expert soldering from veterans like New England Gutter Systems, there's really only one question left. Are you ready to make a permanent, beautiful upgrade to your home and actually make your next gutter your last? Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope this helps you make the very best decision for your home.